Right now, while you are watching this video, your brain is actively sabotaging you. It is lying to you. It is telling you that you have time, that you will start tomorrow, that you are just not feeling it today, and you believe it every single time. But here is what is terrifying. There is a name for this. Psychologists have studied it, and by the end of this video, you will never fall for it again. What I am about to tell you will make you uncomfortable, but that discomfort is exactly what you need. Let me start with something that will sound harsh. You are not lazy. Laziness, as you understand it, does not exist. What you are experiencing is something far more dangerous. It is a pattern your brain has learned over years and years of choosing comfort over growth. Every time you picked the easy option, every time you scrolled instead of working, every time you said, "I will do it later," you were training your brain. You were building a neural pathway. And now that pathway is a highway. Your brain does not have to think anymore. It just defaults to doing nothing. This is not laziness. This is programming. And just like any program, it can be rewritten. But first, you need to understand how deep this goes, because the forces working against you are not just internal. Society, social media, entertainment, even the people around you are all feeding into this loop, and most of them do not even know it. Let me introduce you to a concept in psychology called the default mode network. This is the part of your brain that activates when you are not doing anything specific, when you are daydreaming, when you are lying in bed staring at the ceiling, when you are sitting on the couch telling yourself you will start in 5 minutes. Your default mode network is running the show. And here is what it does. It replays the past, it worries about the future, it creates imaginary scenarios in your head, it tells you stories about who you are. I am not disciplined enough, I am not smart enough, I have tried before and it did not work. These are not facts. These are stories your default mode network is generating to keep you exactly where you are, because your brain has one primary objective, and it is not success, it is not happiness, it is not fulfillment, it is survival. And survival means saving energy. Your brain is an energy miser. It does not want you to change because change requires effort. Effort requires calories, and your ancient brain still thinks you are living in a world where calories are scarce, so it fights you every single day. That voice in your head that says stay in bed, that says watch one more episode, that says you deserve a break even though you haven't done anything, that is your survival brain talking, and you have been listening to it your entire life. Now here is where it gets interesting. There is a concept in dark psychology called learned helplessness. In the 1960s, a psychologist named Martin Seligman conducted an experiment. He exposed dogs to small electric shocks. One group of dogs could press a lever to stop the shocks. The other group had no lever. No matter what they did, the shocks continued. Later, both groups were placed in a new situation where they could easily escape the shocks by jumping over a small barrier. The first group jumped over immediately, but the second group, the ones who had no control before, they just lay down. They whimpered. They accepted the pain. They had learned to be helpless. Now, think about your life. How many times have you tried something and failed? How many times did someone tell you that your dreams were unrealistic? How many times did you put in effort and see no results? Each of those moments was a small shock, and over time, your brain learned something devastating. It learned that trying is pointless, so you stopped trying. Not because you are weak, not because you are lazy, but because your brain genuinely believes that effort will not lead to reward, and that belief is a prison. But here is the part that should make you angry. While you are sitting in that prison of learned helplessness, there are people who understand how your brain works and they
are using it against you. This is where dark psychology comes in. Every app on your phone is designed by teams of psychologists and engineers whose entire job is to keep you scrolling. They use something called variable ratio reinforcement. It is the same principle that makes slot machines addictive. You pull the lever, sometimes you win, most times you do not, but the unpredictability keeps you pulling. Social media works the same way. You scroll and most posts are boring, but every now and then you hit something that gives you a spike of dopamine, a funny video, a shocking story, something that makes you feel outraged or validated, and that random reward keeps you scrolling for hours. You are not addicted to your phone. You are addicted to the dopamine cycle your phone creates, and every minute you spend in that cycle is a minute you are not spending building something real. The people who design these systems know exactly what they are doing. They studied the same psychology I am telling you about right now. The difference is they are using it to keep you distracted. I'm trying to use it to wake you up. Let me tell you about dopamine because most people misunderstand it completely. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It is the anticipation chemical. It does not make you feel good when you get the reward. It makes you feel good when you expect the reward. This is why scrolling through social media feels so compelling. Your brain is constantly anticipating the next good post. This is why online shopping feels exciting, but the actual package arriving feels underwhelming. This is why planning a vacation feels better than being on the vacation. Your brain is wired to chase, not to arrive. And modern life has hijacked this system completely. You are getting massive dopamine hits from things that require zero effort. Junk food, pornography, social media, video games, binge-watching shows. Your brain is flooded with dopamine all day long from sources that give you nothing in return. And here is the consequence. When you sit down to do real work that will actually change your life, your brain compares the dopamine it will get from that effort to the dopamine it could get from picking up your phone. And real work loses every single time. You have not lost your motivation. You have drowned it in cheap dopamine. Your brain has been so overstimulated by easy rewards that difficult, meaningful work feels unbearable by comparison. This is not a willpower problem. This is a chemistry problem. So what do you do about it? The first thing you need to understand is that motivation is not something you wait for. It is something you manufacture. There is a principle in behavioral psychology called the action precedes motivation model. Most people think it works like this. First I feel motivated, then I take action, then I get results. But that is backwards. The real cycle is this. First you take action, then you start to feel motivated, then you get results, which fuels more motivation. You do not wait until you feel like going to the gym. You go to the gym and then you feel like working out. You do not wait until you feel inspired to work on your project. You sit down, you start working, and the inspiration comes. This is not just motivational advice. This is neuroscience. When you begin an action, your brain releases a small amount of dopamine to encourage you to continue. Psychologists call this activation energy. It is the hardest part. It is the moment between sitting on the couch and standing up. The moment between staring at a blank page and writing the first word. That gap is where most people die. Not physically, but their ambitions die there. Their potential dies there. Their future self dies there. In that tiny gap between inaction and action. And that gap is usually about 5 seconds wide. There is a method that sounds almost stupidly simple, but it is backed by real psychology. It is called the 5-second rule, and it was developed by Mel Robbins. When you have an impulse to do something productive, you count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you move. That is it. The reason it works is because counting backwards requires your prefrontal cortex to engage. Your prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible.
Excited for decision-making, planning, and conscious thought. When you count backwards, you interrupt the default mode network. You interrupt the automatic programming that tells you to stay comfortable. You create a moment of conscious control, and in that moment, you can choose action over avoidance. But here is the catch. You have to physically move. You have to stand up, open the laptop, pick up the book, put on your shoes. Because the moment you hesitate, the moment you give your brain time to think about it, you have already lost. Your brain will generate a reason not to do it. It will tell you it is too late, you are too tired, you will start fresh on Monday. These are not rational thoughts. They are defense mechanisms. Your brain is defending its current state. It is defending comfort. And every time you give in, you reinforce the pattern. Every time you push through, you weaken it. Now let us talk about something that goes even deeper. Your identity. There is a concept in psychology called identity-based habits. Most people set goals like this. I want to lose weight. I want to make more money. I want to be more disciplined. But these are outcome-based goals, and outcome-based goals have a fundamental flaw. They depend on results you cannot fully control. But identity-based goals are different. Instead of saying, I want to lose weight, you say, I am the type of person who does not miss a workout. Instead of saying, I want to read more, you say, I am a reader. Instead of saying, I want to be disciplined, you say, I am disciplined. This is not positive affirmation nonsense. This is how your brain actually works. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are. When you go to the gym, you cast a vote for being an athlete. When you sit down and write, you cast a vote for being a writer. When you choose to eat healthy food, you cast a vote for being a healthy person. You do not need a unanimous vote. You do not need to be perfect. You just need the majority. If most of your actions align with the identity you want, your brain will start to believe it. And once your brain believes it, the behavior becomes automatic. It shifts from something you have to force yourself to do into something you just do, because that is who you are. Let me tell you something uncomfortable now. Most of you watching this video will do nothing with this information. And the reason is not because you do not understand it. The reason is because understanding is not enough. There is a psychological phenomenon called the illusion of learning. When you watch a video like this, when you read a self-help book, when you listen to a motivational podcast, your brain experiences a sense of progress. You feel like you have done something. You feel like you have taken a step forward. But you have not moved at all. You are still in the same chair. You are still in the same situation. Nothing in your external reality has changed. But your brain gave you a hit of dopamine for consuming the information, which satisfies the same urge that would have driven you to actually take action. In other words, watching videos about productivity is one of the most unproductive things you can do. Not because the information is bad, but because the act of consuming it tricks your brain into thinking you have already applied it. This is why people can read 50 self-help books and still be in the exact same place they were 5 years ago. They have become addicted to the feeling of learning without ever doing the hard part, which is implementation. So right now, I need you to make a decision. Are you going to be someone who consumes information, or are you going to be someone who acts on it? Because those are two very different types of people with two very different futures. Let me talk about the people around you, because this matters more than you think. There is a concept in psychology called social contagion. Research has shown that your habits, your weight, your income, even your happiness are directly influenced by the people you spend the most time with. If your 5 closest friends are unmotivated, eat poorly, and spend their
weekends doing nothing, you will almost certainly do the same. Not because you are weak, but because human beings are social creatures who unconsciously mirror the behavior of their tribe. This goes back millions of years. Fitting in with the group meant survival. Being different meant being cast out, and being cast out meant death. So your brain is hardwired to conform. When you try to change your life, when you try to wake up earlier, work harder, eat better, your social group will resist. They will make fun of you. They will call you boring. They will say you have changed. And they are right. You have changed. That is the whole point. But your brain interprets their disapproval as a threat. It triggers the same neural circuits that would fire if you were being physically threatened. Your brain does not distinguish between social rejection and physical danger. They feel the same. So most people stop. They go back to their old ways, they sit back down, they rejoin the group, and they tell themselves a story about how they were being unrealistic. But the truth is, they were being exactly realistic. They just could not handle the social cost of growth. Here is something most people will never admit to themselves. You are afraid of success, not failure, success. This sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out. If you succeed, everything changes. If you build that business, if you get in shape, if you transform your life, you can never go back to being the person you were before. And that terrifies you, because the person you are right now, even though you are not happy, is familiar. You know this version of yourself. You know how this version thinks, how this version reacts, how this version copes. The successful version of you is a stranger, and your brain is afraid of strangers. Psychologists call this the fear of the unknown self. It is the reason people self-sabotage right when they are about to break through. They skip the workout that would have been their 100th in a row. They pick a fight with their partner right when the relationship is going well. They procrastinate on the project that is almost finished. It is not random. It is not bad luck. It is your subconscious pulling you back to what is familiar, because familiar equals safe, even if familiar means miserable. Your brain would rather you be predictably unhappy than unpredictably successful. Let that sink in for a moment. Your own mind would rather you suffer in a way it understands than thrive in a way it does not. So how do you actually break free? Let me give you a framework that is based on real psychology, not motivation, not inspiration, actual change. Step 1, do a dopamine detox. For 1 full day, eliminate all sources of cheap dopamine. No phone, no social media, no television, no junk food, no music even. Just you and your thoughts. This will be extremely uncomfortable. You will feel anxious, restless, maybe even irritated. That discomfort is your brain screaming for stimulation because it has become dependent on it. Push through it. By the end of the day, your dopamine receptors will start to reset. Things that felt boring before, like reading, exercising, working on a project, will start to feel more rewarding. Do this once a week, and within a month, you will notice a dramatic shift in your ability to focus and take action. Step 2, use implementation intentions. Research by psychologist Peter Gallwitzer has shown that people who specify when, where, and how they will perform a behavior are significantly more likely to follow through. Do not say, I will exercise more. Say, I will go for a 30-minute run at 7 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the park near my house. The specificity removes the decision-making process, and decisions are where your brain finds opportunities to talk you out of things. Step 3, make the first step impossibly small. If you want to write a book, your daily goal is not to write a chapter. It is to write 1 sentence. If you want to get in shape, your goal is not an hour at the gym. It is to put on your workout shoes. This sounds ridiculous, but it eliminates the activation energy barrier. And once you start, momentum takes over. Nobody puts on their gym shoes and then sits back down.
The couch. I want to leave you with one final concept that changed everything for me when I first heard it. It is called the rocking chair test. Imagine yourself at 80 years old, sitting in a rocking chair on your porch. You are looking back at your life. From that perspective, ask yourself these questions. Will you be proud of how you spent today? Will you be glad you watched another 3 hours of content instead of building something? Will you be satisfied knowing you had the potential but never used it because you are waiting to feel ready? The brutal truth is that you will never feel ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. The people you admire, the ones who built businesses, wrote books, transformed their bodies, overcame impossible odds, they were not ready either. They were scared. They were uncertain. They were insecure. The only difference between them and you is that they started anyway. They felt the resistance and moved through it, not because they had more willpower, not because they were special, but because they understood something that most people never grasp. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. Every morning you wake up is a chance to become someone different, not someone new, someone who was always there, underneath the excuses, underneath the distractions, underneath the learned helplessness and the cheap dopamine and the fear of change. Your brain is working against you. That is true. But now you know. Now you understand the mechanisms, the tricks, the psychological traps. And awareness is the first step to freedom. But it is only the first step. The second step is action. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not next month. Right now. When this video ends, do not click on another video. Do not open social media. Do not go back to sleep. Do one thing. Just one thing that moves you closer to the person you want to be. Send that email. Open that document. Lace up those shoes. Do it now. Because the person you become is determined by what you do in the moments when no one is watching and nothing is forcing you. This is your moment. Do not waste it.